Thank you for attending tonight. My name is Tim Hollerberger. I'm a steering committee member of the St. John's Holland Coalition and moderator for tonight's nonpartisan candidate forum. And assisting with the live stream Facebook is Troy Hicks and also Andrea Ryan and Tessa Lynch will be assisting the audience with questions. And we also want to thank Jen Branch. She's not here right now, but she's a career director for Clinton County RESA, and the person allowing us to use this conference room. She's always been very accommodating for us in our past needs. And this event is sponsored by the coalition as a means of informing residents of the 4 candidates seeking 2 open 4-year term city council seats and 2 incumbents and a challenger who have filed to fill 2 6-year terms, along with 2 candidates who have filed to serve 2 partial terms to the St. John's School Board of Education. I hope that came out okay. There was a lot of dispill at one time. Their names will appear on the ballot of the November 8th general election. All of these candidates were contacted at numerous times beginning in August and invited to participate in tonight's forum. There was one person who I didn't have any contact information on. And so I just want to bring some context into what's going on. Of the 4 candidates vying for city council seats, only one accepted our invitation. Scott, thank you. Scott Nierzak, thank you for being here tonight. And of the 5 St. John's School Board candidates, none of the 3 seeking 6-year terms are here tonight. Only the 2 seeking partial terms, Matthew Volk and Kathy Elliott, are participating. Thank you for coming tonight. Okay, we have a right to have our voices represented, and this forum will help us ask questions to determine the candidate on election day, Tuesday, November 8th, that best reflects our concerns and values in the community of St. John's. In recent years, there has been a trend towards us and them politics. This has contributed to a culture where respect for differences is waning alongside nonpartisan constructive inquiry. More than ever, we need to make space for honest conversations that allow people to better understand each other's lived experiences. And we hope this forum can offer that space tonight. And, as a reminder of the nonpartisanship of this forum, we would like to not no cheering or jeering or excessive applause, and we please ask of you to respect others and be respected in return in a professional, courteous manner. And the candidates here tonight have already been informed that we've been in contact with each other on the basic guidelines for nonpartisanship tonight, ground rules for participation and the structure of the format of this forum. Now, an additional ground rule that I'd like to talk quickly about is the participating candidates may engage with each other only after the forum concludes to avoid taking away time reserved for questions from the audience and the public. And I'd also at this time like to mention 2 proposed city charter amendments that will be on the ballot as well, and that's the streets and sidewalks. A proposed amendment seeks to authorize a millage of up to 3 mills for 6 years for the purpose of paving, reconstructing and improving sidewalks, streets, curbs and gutters, and proper drainage facilities. This millage is a continuation of the Streets and Sidewalks program for which voters approved millage funds in 2013 and 2017. the second is a proposed amendment seeking to change the meeting requirements of the city commission from semi-monthly to monthly, as well as move the meeting time for the meeting following a regular municipal election from 8 p.m. to 6 p.m. And this change from 2 required meetings per month to 1 required meeting per month will not affect the ability to call special meetings if needed. A proposal, St. John's Public Schools non-homestead operating millage renewal. The operating, just some quick facts is the millage renewals, reauthorization of an existing millage that is restricted to rental, commercial, and industrial properties with St. John's Public Schools is not levied on a family's primary home or qualified agricultural properties and has 0 impact on homeowners' property taxes, and provides approximately $3 million in funding to support school operations, including staffing, supplies, buses, utilities, and utilities such as heat and electrical. And just want to, after the forum, there will be kind of just an informal gathering if you wanted to meet and greet, shake hands, discuss issues, with the candidates. So yeah, we'll get going, and the questions, how we're going to work this out, the questions school board, and then we'll go to city council, and then back and forth to keep you all engaged at the same time instead of waiting like that. But well, we'll start with Scott, and if you'd just like to introduce yourself a bit, what is your ambition for the city and why you're seeking council seat?
You got it. Tim, thanks for having me, and certainly to the group, thank you for hosting this open community forum. I'm Scott Dzurka. I'm running for city council. I've been a resident of St. John's for almost 20 years now. Been active in the community, in the nonprofit community, in faith-based community. Over my career, I've really worked in public policy my entire career. Right now I work in health and human services as a consultant in Lansing. Prior to that, I was a nonprofit executive for an organization that serves disadvantaged individuals. Prior to that, worked with all of the community mental health organizations around the state, and work with individuals with disabilities, as well as within county government, working on policy areas. I'm a widower of 2.5 years. My wife passed away from cancer 2.5 years ago. I'm in a relationship now. But, while I was a caretaker, I really had to disengage in a lot of community activities at that time for other priorities. And I really felt coming, as we come out of COVID, it was really time to re-engage and get more deeper involvement in all government aspects. I will say certainly January 6th had a profound impact on me, watching what happened at the Capitol. And I thought it's really time to step up in some way and get engaged again. And that was a driver for me. I think, as we all know, we all feel a lot of tension in communities, St. John's included in that. And I think for all of us, as we step back and look where communities are headed, it's an important question for all of us. I feel all government needs accountable leadership, whether it's school board, whether it's city council, whether it's your state or federal government. I want us to be responsive to the public, to listen to their needs. Certainly, I feel we need to think big picture. So many times we really need to establish a vision, understand where we're headed as a community. There's a lot of things cities, of course, as you know, can do that through, whether that's through public ordinances, or primarily your plans, whether they're your master plans, parks, housing, etc. And really try to build a sense of place for the community, communicate well with the citizens, get their feedback, and then align all of our resources, whether that's government resources, whether that's the philanthropic community, whether that's business, charity, other governments, to really find our common interests as a community.
Thank you, Scott. We'll go with Matthew. Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Boak, and I am running as a writing candidate for the St. John's Public Schools Board of Education. So my name will not technically be on the ballot, but I'm asking for all your support. Writing in my name for the term ending December 31st, 2026. A little bit about myself. I am a lifelong resident of Clinton County. I graduated from St. John's Public Schools in 2014. I'm a graduate of Central Michigan University, where in 2018, where I earned a bachelor's degree in major in political science. And I'm currently a student at Grand Valley State University, looking to obtain a Master of Public Administration, which basically gives me a knowledge base with the best practices for working with government organizations and nonprofits. I am employed at the Michigan Department of Corrections currently, have been for about the past year now. And there I work with their legislative affairs team. And then previously before that, I worked for the Michigan Senate as a journal clerk. So basically taking notes and putting together the official kind of legal record of the Senate, kind of what actions took place during the session. And so, you know, with the school board, obviously I'm a product of public schools. I'm very proud of that. I think we can all agree that St. John's Public Schools is an exceptional district. You know, going through it myself, I had amazing teachers and staff who really helped prepare me to be successful in my life, and I want to give back to my community to help do the same. Our schools offer great educational opportunities to our students. They offer great extracurricular opportunities to our students. Like I said, I want to uphold that. I think what we've seen across the state and across the country with schools and school boards specifically, when I look at that, I kind of look at our district and I say, you know, while there's always room for change and improvement, we've got something really good with this community. I want to uphold that. I want to continue on with the standards that we have, with the close-knit community that we have, and continue to build that and grow that in a very positive direction. Of course, I'm open to change and improvement. I think all organizations need that at different points in time, but when we do look to make those changes, it needs to be thorough, it needs to be detailed, it needs to be conversations that involve all of our stakeholders, it needs to be conversations that are looking at all the data, all the research to kind of come to a very holistic decision that is going to really benefit everyone, but more specifically our students, which, you know, that's why I'm running this to kind of help continue to build this district into a place where our students can really succeed after they graduate to do whatever they want, you know, whatever's going to help them be fulfilled and succeed in life. So I ask for your support. Like I said, as a writing candidate, please, if you so choose, write my name on a ballot for the election. So thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Catherine Elliott, how are you tonight?
I'm very well, thank you, and please call me Kathy,
Okay, Catherine.
at least until I get in trouble. We can slide into Catherine. So I'm Kathy Elliott. I am running to complete what remains in a 6-year term. The balance is 2 years, so it would run through December of 2024. I have lived in St. John's for approximately 16 years. And my children went through the school district, 3 of them. 2 of them, I'm proud to say, serve as local volunteer firefighters. I try not to think about that too much. It's a little bit scary as a mama, thinking about what they are doing, but I'm so proud of them, and I'm really happy to see them continue what I believe is, you know, a family legacy of service, the service beyond self. My parents were both Navy veterans, so Navy, and they gave selflessly. And my father passed eventually of Agent Orange exposure, and so I have always wanted to give back, and began my elected career back in high school as student council president. So this is not my first rodeo, but probably the most important position that I've had an opportunity to run for. In addition to having lived in the community for 16 years and raising 3 amazing children, one who just graduated, and to your point earlier, there are cycles and rhythms of our life where we are not as able to engage and volunteer, and our heart may be there, and we give of our time and ourselves where we can, but it's not always possible to give as deeply. And when my youngest graduated, I looked around and said, what can I do for fun and what can I do for service? Because I haven't really been able to fully invest in either for the last 20-some years. I currently work at Michigan State University. I've been there about a dozen years or so. I work in their Central Human Resources Department. Right now, I work in professional and organizational development. I work coaching leaders and staff and within the organizations to help make them the strongest they can be by following ethical, visionary standards. I have a master's degree in public administration, a master's degree in human resources, and a bachelor's degree in human resources. And I've held public office before, a nonpartisan public office as a road commissioner in Isabella County and a village council member in Shepherd.
Thank you. Thank you. Kathy. Okay, we'll begin with our questions. And just a reminder also that for the audience participation, write down your questions and we'll Tessa will come by and pick them up and we'll answer them if we can. And then Troy is also facilitating the questions on Facebook live stream. So, Scott, we'll begin with you and do you think our main street downtown St. John's is healthy and successful? And if not, what would you do to change it?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I think we're on a road to progress with our downtown. We're seeing it expand. We're seeing it potentially the downtown grow beyond just Main Street into the side streets and potentially, depending where Rodney B. Wilson goes, to the other side of the county courthouse. I think growth is great. I talked a little bit about vision. Was recently at a community gathering where several of the entities, organizations came together and are really still trying to figure out where and what we want to do. I think it's important to partner with the DDA. It's now been reestablished. That the city and the DDA should certainly work hand in hand. I think we've got to listen to our business owners very closely to maintain a healthy and vibrant downtown.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. And for Matthew, what are some of the major issues that you believe our school district is currently facing? And what would you like the district, how would you like the district to deal with those issues?
Yeah, so I think one of the big struggles that not only our district is facing, but districts across the state is enrollment. And that is important because our school gets funding from the state depending on what our enrollment numbers are. I think for the current, I guess, budget year, for each student that a school has, they get $9,150 of funding from the state. And so, as you can probably guess, if you have a year where there's fewer students than the year before, then you are going to get less money from the state. And that means less operating revenue for the district. So we'll have to cut at different points and try to make up for those losses. Currently, I think the projections look good for our district. I think we've seen this year, I think we have 50 more students this year than last year, which is great. That means more state funding. And the projections look good. We look like we're going to kind of level off here. But at least in the past few years, like I said, enrollment was declining across the state. Like I said before in my opening statement, our district is a great district. We have a lot of opportunities. We're very close knit. And I think that if we increase our marketing and communications of our district, not only to the community here, but to other communities that surround us, I think we can really work towards bolstering our enrollment and making sure that we're kind of remaining fiscally above the water as we move into the future. Another is employment. They're across the state and across the country. A lot of industries are facing difficulties trying to find employees. School districts, it's the same for us. I think especially with our classroom aid positions and our bus driver positions, we're seeing it's a tough time trying to find it and keep employees around. So making sure that we're providing adequate compensation benefits to those employees is extremely important. So I promise to continue to look at that and to make sure that we're not only keeping the current employees we have, which are great and amazing and dedicated, but making sure that we can also attract new employees as we need them as well. So
thank you, Matthew. Kathy, same question.
And I'm not sure whether Matt mentioned it, he is currently serving the school board. So not only running as a write-in candidate, but he is currently has stepped up to fill a vacancy. And so I think we're very lucky to have him in this community. Certainly budget's always going to be an issue. I think a couple of the things that we'll need to be looking at in terms of vision and strategy for making sure that we continue to help our students graduate with the skills and the preparedness to go out into the world and be successful is, and largely this will be dictated by the state board as they reassess the curriculum. But we do have a leaning now towards many vacancies in the trades. We have about 500,000 trades positions in Michigan right now with an estimate of about 50,000 added per year over the next several years. And back in my day, when I graduated in '88, we would say you're going to college or you're not going to college, or maybe you're going into the military, but we never talked about the trades. Within higher ed, which is where I spend most of my life, we are going to see a turn away from traditional higher education programming to a micro certification and not degrees in the sense we've known them. And we're going to need to prepare our students for opportunities that are going to be more trades related and that are more new to us, things we haven't even contemplated before. Within that, I think it's really important that we make sure we are supporting the families who have students in our district. I want to make sure, in particular, having older children myself, make sure that we have resources and support available to families of middle school and higher grades. Recent communication on a forum talks about where do the kids go to do things and be safe and stay out of trouble. We need to talk about that. And perhaps most important to the coalition, we need to be talking about inclusivity and making sure that children feel accepted however they present and whatever's important to them, however they identify, that there's acceptance, because you can't educate well and be prepared if you are fearful or misunderstood in our schools.
Thank you, Kathy. Back to City Council and Scott, how do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our town?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tim. You talked and mentioned earlier about the ordinance, city charter amendment that's going to take meetings back once a month. I know that's potentially a limited voice. I really hope that the city continues to find ways to expand that voice to public hearings. I know I've chatted with some of the current members on just some of that dialogue that goes back and forth if you've been to city council meetings, and how do we really create more of a dialogue instead of just a one-way conversation. I think engagement in committees, other places to really allow people to listen to how the decisions are made is going to be important. So I think that's part of it, but also I feel passionately about elected officials that engage directly with their community, whether that's walking around door to door, whether that's listening to neighborhoods, engaging in neighborhood conversations or meetings is also important for elected officials to get that feedback and voice.
Thank you, Scott. And Matthew, what is your view of the student-led and student-organized Genders and Sexualities Alliance at the high school? And do you have a supportive stance of the alliance?
Yeah, so, the Alliance is a student organization within the school system. A group of students, if they so choose, can form, an organization or a club. I believe that there's always a faculty member or a staff member that kind of leads it and is kind of there for kind of support for that group. And so, yeah, if a group of students so chooses to form a group like that, if they feel like they have a shared interest in wanting to get together and find support among themselves and maybe increase support in the school, then I am supportive of that. And I think, whatever our students want to partake in it, as long as it's healthy, as long as it's going to have benefits to our students, then I'm supportive of that. And was there a second part of that question? I don't know if I.
Just, do you have a supportive stance?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Matt. And Kathy? Your
I
answer to that?
I think it's amazing that they have the opportunity and that the school allows the students to form organizations that meet their needs and allow them to interact with other students who share their experiences. I think it's really important. Teenage years are tough, really. I'm not saying the 50s get any easier, but right, we have our own set of issues, but those are tough years. And the more that we can encourage and give opportunities for our students to find peers to walk alongside them in their journey, whatever that is going to be for them, I think the better it is for them and for our community.
Thank you, Kathy. City Council, Scott, how familiar are you with the diversity of the St. John's community? And are you aware and supportive of our LGBTQ plus community and our BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color, and other marginalized population in the community? And what representation would you give them?
Wow, there's a mouthful.
Yeah.
So let me just share, certainly, I think as we look at St. John's, Clinton County proper, the last census, we're certainly seeing growth in diversity from the race side. I would certainly say I acknowledge that growth, that understanding, and make sure that all communities have voice and say in our communities. You know, one thing I haven't mentioned yet that I've had the fortunate ability to do, while, you know, cities are somewhat restricted in terms of what they can and cannot do, you know, we have to follow the law. And I have had the fortunate opportunity to work with a guy by the name of Mel Larson, that if you know Mel, Mel's the one half of the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act. And I actually called Mel before this and chatted with him. And Mel reminded me that we all have a duty to follow the law. And Elliott Larson, or ELCRA, you know, reminds us that we do not discriminate based on education. We don't discriminate on housing and public accommodations. And we know a lot of that is still being decided by courts. I think we all wait to see what the courts at the state and federal level rule in that, but certainly a victory in the last year was the acknowledgement within ELCRA that you know, sexual orientation does apply under that act, which has been a long fought battle.
Thank you, Scott. And Matthew, at our June Pride Fest this year in downtown St. John's, there were many reports of homophobic bullying at the middle and high school levels that we received. We were participants in that. And how would you address this issue?
Yeah, so our schools, and my number one priority is to make our schools places that students can come to and feel safe and cared for and respected. If they don't feel those three things, if we're not meeting those three criteria, then how is a student ever supposed to focus on an education, which is what we provide our schools for in the first place? If there are, you know, we do have policies in place at the school for discriminatory and sexual harassment, you know, regarding the basis of sex, which includes gender identity and sexual orientation. You know, in my mind, it's a zero tolerance policy. If anyone is being bullied for any part of their identity or for any reason, I don't think that necessarily is a place in our schools at all. I don't think it creates a positive learning environment for our students. And so, you know, I think that should be definitely dealt with at the appropriate channels through the appropriate disciplinary process, through the school or you know, whichever kind of environment it occurs in. So, but definitely no place in our schools.
Thanks, Matthew. And Kathy, do you believe that teachers should have a greater input, voice in district decisions that impact their work and their students? And if so, what would you support?
So in my prior life, before moving into organizational and training development, spent almost 15 years in labor relations, which means I'm a word walk and a policy walk. And so one of the things that I've always said, and I'll try to answer your question, but when we're posed questions like, should we Should we invest more money? Should we give them greater access or greater? That presumes that I fully comprehend how much of a say they already have. And so what I would say is, should they have a voice? Yes. I would also say faculty is important, as it is important at MSU, my employer. But I never want to lose sight of the wonderful administrative staff, the support staff that help make that a home for our students as well. My most notable experiences in school were with a custodian in my elementary school who let me peek into the boiler room. It was really scary. And a secretary that I had in elementary school who helped nurse me when we had, when we had a more active nursing situation. So yes to voice, not exclusively to faculty. And whether it should be greater than it already is would be a presumption I can't make unless I have an opportunity to serve and fully comprehend what voice is already present. But I would definitely support that engagement.
Thank you, Kathy. And City Council, Scott, what do you believe is the role of the City Council in our community?
Yeah, sure. I think we need to first off be a good administrator and steward of tax and resources. The public empowers us to oversee that tax base. And then, really the city has its ability to govern and manage through ordinances. A lot of that power and authority is set by state government to direct us on what we cannot do. But really to plan, whether that's working through your master plan for planning and zoning, whether that's through parks and recreation and community plan, and whether that's through that planning and zoning through housing too, which I think is a critical need, not only for St. John's, but for all communities as we see rising prices and housing stock that is getting older and older. I think a community and the city council really should be the leader of a community in terms of collaborating and gathering community players, resources, and entities that all have a vested interest in the success of the community.
Thank you, Scott. Matthew, what criteria and processes should be used to choose or ban curricular material?
Yes, that's a good question. As I kind of alluded to in my opening statement, as I mentioned, we've seen a lot of things happening in our state, across the country with schools and school boards and curricula and different policies that school boards may or may not enact or take action on. As far as curricula, as a school board's job is to guide the overall mission, the overall goals of the district. One of our responsibilities is to approve curricula, and we take that responsibility very seriously. As Gabby kind of alluded to earlier, I always respect administrators and teachers. I do not myself have a degree in K-12 education. I'm not an expert in it by any means, so I'll always defer to our administration, our staff, as well as the state who does enact standards for curriculum. So we always kind of as a board, we definitely go and look at and approve those policies, and if we do have issues or problems or concerns with them, we can definitely bring that up. But I'll always defer to administration when it comes to expertise regarding K-12 curriculum. But like I said, if I do see a change that I think needs to be made or if something concerns me, I will bring it up, at the board level. But yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. And I just a reminder that we'll take questions from the audience.
Does anyone have any questions you want to? Yeah. Yes, we'll be around to get that.
All right, Kathy, what do you believe is the role of a school board member? Kind of general, but
Right, I know, I can make that as broader as narrow as much like Matthew said. It's really to support the administrators and superintendents, and those that work in the school district to be able to enact and follow the guidance provided to us by the state. enacting the curriculum, making sure that our students have a healthy and successful experience. I also believe as a board member, while it is not our role to insert ourselves in the decisions that are made by the superintendent, we hire a superintendent to do that. It is certainly within our scope to ask questions about issues that are brought to our attention, to be curious, to understand why the decisions have been made as they have, and to maybe offer suggestions or ideas based on our own life experiences and skills that we bring. I had a conversation before coming here today about a club sport that is shared between St. John's and another community that hasn't quite made it all the way into the athletics department, but it's growing greatly. And so that would be something that I would inquire about, so that our students have more opportunities to engage, interact, and explore their passions while they're with us.
Thank you, Kathy. And City Council Scott, what is your approach to handling controversial and complicated issues?
Certainly. I think it's important to bring all sides together. Kathy kind of talked about labor relations and I, myself and some of my nonprofit work and engaged with labor and work through facilitated processes. I think bringing all voices to the table, I think rising up and trying to find where there's commonality is always an important starting point. We so many times start with our differences, yet we don't always begin with where we have common goals, common values, and then figure out how to strive towards that commonality with groups. We're always going to deal with controversy. It feels like in today's world, almost everything's controversial. But hopefully we can have civil discourse conversations like this with one another to really understand each other's perspectives and find that common direction.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. And so we have a question from the audience here. Also, a note that moderator and candidates need to speak louder. Okay. Whatever, I'll try and bellow. Okay, school board question. Matthew, what is your view on the current trends of banning books?
Yeah, so as with any decision that is made by a board or district, and as I alluded to earlier, if there's ever problems or issues like that come up in front of the board, I believe it should be a deliberative process. We should look to see why there was the proposition to either ban books or take a look at kind of the books that we offer, the literature that we're offering or studying. It needs to be a process that involves all stakeholders involved. So not only teachers, but parents, community members, again, kind of looking towards the expertise of individuals that we employ, but also looking to make sure we're bringing in the viewpoints of parents and community members as well. The school district is made up of, like I said, a lot of different stakeholders. So at this point in time, I'm not aware of in our district this happening at all. If it did come up, I think anything is worth a look, but at this point, I don't see this as an issue in our district. And like I said, if it was, then we would take it through the appropriate channels, the appropriate processes, look at it as we would any other issue, and come together at a consensus as to what our decision would be. So.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. And Kathy, in our question here is, in our experience, the high school does not enforce a zero tolerance to bullying because of race. How would you work to see this changed?
Well, that's unfortunate to hear. I would, going back to my labor relations experience, nothing is ever as easy and as clear cut as it would seem. So I want some information about that. What are some of the experiences that have occurred? What have we done in the past? And has that been successful? And do we have a sense of the underlying reason why it is occurring? But having said that, there is no place for that in our schools. And I would want to understand why that is occurring. Sometimes what presents as an issue about race in this example. Sometimes this goes a little bit deeper with the person that's engaged in that behavior. And so I want to know what's also happening with that person and what they're experiencing and how we can support them to bring their best selves to school. So, yeah.
Thank you, Kathy. And City Council, Scott, the question here is, do you have a vision or a master plan for the city? And questions of how to develop and how to implement that vision?
Yeah, certainly. The city did go through a strategic planning process in the last year to start to articulate some of that vision. Visions take time. Visions don't happen overnight with strategy, whether it's a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. The city right now is at a time of really recreating its master plan. And master plans are critical for cities because if you're familiar with planning, zoning regulations, that sets a lot of boundaries, a lot of direction, and a lot of opportunity for what you can potentially bring into organizations and into the city as a whole. I think it's important to align visions. So many times we see misalignment between plans and visions, whether it's your master plan, how that fits in with plans of the DDA, plans around road and street repair, or business development. So first and foremost, I think it's really to pull together all those plans to make sure that they are working in concert and timed appropriately and not running into conflict with one another.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, I have it. There's a part 2 also. Just,
There's a part 3 and part 4.
oh, I get it now. Okay. What type of growth do you envision for the city?
Yeah, I think following COVID, we're certainly going to see business and community change. As you look, of course, we all work a lot around state government, and we see a lot more people that are working at home. So I think infrastructure is going to become very important for all of us, whether that's internet service, high-speed internet, very dependable, affordable, I think is going to attract people. I think we have great opportunities to attract youth. I think youth are now looking for places. I know the city is looking at new apartment complexes to try to do some of that recruitment. We're still going to depend, of course, on traditional business around Clinton County, whether that's agriculture. We've seen certainly great expansion in city proper around some of those opportunities, whether it's cheese factory or the dairy industry. And I still hope that manufacturing is an opportunity. We need to marriage between talent and businesses. As Kathy alluded to, there's certainly changes going on in that education structure. And I think we have to be aware of the recruitment aspects to make St. John's a friendly place for businesses to attract growth.
Thanks, Scott. Matthew, a question here. In your stated goal of allowing a safe environment from students, does that apply to groups beyond LGBTQ, to Christians? If I'm reading this right, Nazi and KKK type groups as well?
Yeah, so when it comes to different groups, I think we always need to be mindful of how groups are classified at different levels within the state or by different organizations. As far as looking at, different religions, different identities, LGBTQ groups, like I said earlier, it's my intention that we always make our schools accommodating and places where students can be made to feel safe, be made to feel cared for. And as different situations come to light, we will look at those on a case-by-case basis. I can't make any promises. I can't foresee the future with that, but just know that, as we arrive at different situations that may pop up, we'll look at it deliberately as a board.
Thank you, Matthew. And Kathy, at what age is it appropriate for schools to help or encourage students to make gender choices?
Well, I'm not an expert on that, so I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a medical practitioner at all. And so I think that, that there would be some, certainly guidance available in that realm. But I'm not aware that the schools have ever or do engage in helping children identify their gender, nor helping students identify with a gender other than one that they've previously presented at. I don't think that's been the school's practice, and I don't think that it will be. The school needs to be accepting of all those who present of any gender and create a safe learning environment, respectful of one another, zero tolerance for hate speech or behavior.
Thank you, Kathy. Hi, Scott. If elected, how will you solicit input from areas of the city outside of where you live?
Certainly, I talked a little bit about this earlier, but I think there's a lot of neighborhood groups to engage. There's community groups to engage. Being visible beyond just city council meetings, it's a great place for public input, but it needs to go deeper. And I think that, opening myself to attend other meetings, community groups, neighborhood groups, and the like, and bringing that feedback back to city council for decision making on a regular basis.
Thanks, Scott. Matthew, should our schools teach CRT?
I am not aware of that being taught in our schools. If there was an allegation or a certain individual brought that to the board's attention, we would, like I said, as every other issue, as I've mentioned, we look at it deliberatively. But as far as I'm concerned, that's not something that's happening in our schools. But should that issue come up or any other issue, like I said, like it's basis and discuss and deliberate as a board.
Thank you, Matthew. And Kathy, critical race theory has permeated most of our institutions in America and has now ended up in small town America. It is a takeoff of the Marxist critical theory. It tends to divide us as Americans and by our skin color. What are your feelings on this and how do you keep it out of our schools?
Could you repeat that question?
Sure. Critical race theory has permeated most of our institutions in America and has now ended up in small town America. It is a takeoff of the Marxist critical theory. It tends to divide us as Americans and by our skin color. What are your feelings on this and how do we keep it out of our schools?
I want to focus on the word critical. In the sense that I think above new math, which I still don't understand, and all of the experiences and the education that we afford our children in this district and others, I believe one of the areas that we fall short on is critical thinking. And I believe it is incumbent on us educating our students and reaching out to maintain a learning community, families that learn together, for us to be able to distinguish between, in a critical way, between issues that seem to have arisen as a result of efforts to create friction and factions between and among us. So I believe that we should be focusing first on identifying the legitimacy of any allegations that the educational system has somehow been hijacked, and consider the source of that information. I believe that the education we should provide, especially related to history and the experiences in our world, which truly is global now, is that it is honest and representative, and sometimes that's going to be uncomfortable for us.
Kathy. City Council, Scott, as a commission, as a commissioner, would you have voted yes to June as Pride Month?
Yes, I would have. Certainly, yes, City Council, Pride Month, City Knowledge. I would say, while that's an important step, I really hope beyond resolutions that we get to some sort of action and really create space for dialogue. I know at points there were some groups that were not for the establishment of gay pride. But I hope that we can use opportunities like that to further dialogue, to bring differences together, and help people understand the differences each of us have.
Thank you, Scott. Matthew, how important is planning time for teachers in improving student learning? And do you think that teachers in our district have enough, too little, or too much planning time at the elementary, middle, and high school levels?
So I think planning time is especially important for teachers as they look to make lesson plans and you know, kind of prepare for the educational instruction, but also to decompress themselves. I have a number of friends who are teachers, not in the specific district, but across the state. Teaching is a difficult job. It is a tiring job. I respect our teachers immensely for the jobs that they do. And having that planning time, I think, is especially important. I'm not specifically aware of our teachers specifically having, you know, issues with having too little planning time. But should that issue come before the board, I would definitely always err on the side of supporting our teachers and making sure that they have what they need, whether it be time or whether it be supplies. I think it's all important. The more time and the better prepared that our teachers are, you know, the more time they have, the better education they can give our students, which, you know, when it comes down to, as I mentioned earlier, that's our number one priority of the district is providing education for students.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. Kathy, how do you feel about that question?
Planning time. I too am not aware of any particular issues, although again, leaning into my labor relations experiences, our teachers, all of our school employees, but we're talking about our teachers right now, they have families too. And they need to see an end to their work day. They have a passion for the work they do and a love for it. And the quickest way to kill that is to force them into dividing themselves between caring for our children and giving of themselves to the family that also needs them. And so it's critical that they're able to do the work that we're asking of them on the clock, as it were, in the time that we afford them. We ask so much of our educators. And we are so fortunate to have a teaching community willing to give of themselves in that way. But I don't believe that it'll continue to be hope not asked them. I don't think it's sustainable or fair. Why would we look to make sure that they do have the time that they need?
Thank you, Kathy. Scott, what percent of city residents have a solid understanding of the city how the city operates? If it is a low percent, how would you get more residents to learn more about our city operations?
Great question. So I've been trying to make my way door to door with a lot of people and just chatting with folks. I think there's a very low understanding. It's not surprising in local government, whether it's in St. John's or other places, helping people understand just what a city cannot do. I think what's imperative is we've seen in a larger global sense is the disappearance of local newspapers, of critical ways of communicating with one another. And that's fallen by the wayside. I appreciate the city has now started to do a bit more communicating. You've probably seen some of those flyers come in the mail, but we certainly need to do more. You know, when you have that misunderstanding, what tends to happen is the rumor mill starts. And that's not a healthy dialogue for anyone. So I think having open, transparent conversations, communications, giving people more advanced lead time as to what might be happening, and making sure when there's changes potentially in the neighborhood, other places, in planning and zoning, that the community is well aware. We've seen that experience recently in city council meetings with some voices that have come forward on some changes that are happening in the front yard and really weren't necessarily aware of that. So I think for council members, for others to go that extra mile so that people can understand not only the process of what chances they have and where they can express their voice, but then also doing much more general communication, whether it's online, whether it's through expanded access through the city's communications.
Thank you, Scott. A part of your answer touched me. I was a staff writer and editor here in town for two publications for 15 years. That'd be the St. John's Reminder, but County News. And so thank you for your answer on that. Matthew, what are some of the strengths and weaknesses you see in our district?
Yeah, so I think strengths that I see in our district is that we, as I mentioned earlier, offer a ton of extracurricular opportunities for our students, whether it be sports, whether it be arts, whether it be band, orchestra, whether it be opportunities to travel to other states, to go on field trips. I know we have ongoing field trips to Nashville and Chicago for our orchestra students. Whether it be the trades, we have a program called Lights, and we travel around to different parts of the state and focus on trades, which Kathy kind of moved to that earlier, extremely important as well. So I think there's a wide array of opportunities that that we offer in our schools. And I think that's one of our strengths. I think another one of our strengths is that we are responsive as far as providing opportunities for residents and parents and concerned community members to come onto our board meetings. They're open to the public. We put up our agendas well before meeting times, and we do allow comment at multiple times during our meetings as well. So we always do welcome the public. We want to hear their thoughts, their opinions, and their input. As far as weaknesses of our district, that is a good question as well. That's tough. As I continue to mention, I think we have a phenomenal district. I think it is, we have been seeing more costs related to the conditions and the age of our buildings and our infrastructure. You're going to see that in any district, no matter where you are. If you do have older buildings or older boilers, older, sports facilities, and so we're seeing continued costs with those, and I think that's important as we keep that in mind. I think we're doing a good job at kind of parsing those out with our expenses and kind of getting to the most pressing issues first. And so, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Kathy, if necessary, where would you cut the school budget? And what would you consider off limits to budget cuts and why?
I don't know. it's such a complicated decision, and I don't think that any cuts would be made exclusively in one area, because they're all so critical. Athletics and extracurricular activities is important for growth and education just as much as anybody else. My children played sports. My daughter's been in theater. My daughter was a Knights winner. I don't know how you make that decision easily. I don't think that you can. So I think you would have to look at making sure that the cuts are carefully identified, but don't completely eliminate programs that are important to our students.
Thank you, Kathy. Scott, why do we need Pride Month, since this is such a controversial issue? It divides a community. The city should remain neutral.
Well, yeah, I think acknowledgement of any group that comes forward, if you look at Pride Month, a group coalesced, came together, followed what was a city policy to get a resolution before city council, and any group has that right. That's the fortunate part we have in America, to use the process to gain acknowledgement. So whether it's Gay Pride Month, whether it's recognition of other months, I think it helps the city understand that the LGBTQ community is present and not ignored.
Thank you, Scott. Matthew, I'm going to ask you that question I asked Kathy. If necessary, where would you cut the school budget, and what would you consider off limits to budget cuts, and why?
Yeah, so I think with the experience that I've had at work thus far, we do have staff who are very good at what they do as far as making sure that we stay afloat with our expenses and making sure that we're making very educated decisions when it comes to utilizing our funds. Kind of similar to Kathy's answer, I don't think any program should ever be fully cut. I think each one was carefully chosen as part of our curriculum, as part of our district, because it provided some sort of benefit to our students. I think, if we do have to make cuts, I think it should be done very deliberately. I think I will kind of listen to the expertise of our staff who are, like I said, business professionals who do that for a living. I'm not a finance expert myself. And I think our programs are important. I think that we have the ability to make decisions that are not going to put an entire program or an entire piece of our curriculum or an entire sport or arts program, what have you, completely down under. I don't see that with our current revenues and expenditures. I think we're doing very well right now as a district. And like I mentioned earlier, I think it only looks good for the future as far as our enrollment is concerned, and of course that's tied with the funding we get. So I'm very optimistic about the future of our district as far as its expenses and its finances are concerned.
Thank you, Matthew. Kathy, what are some of the strengths and weaknesses you see in our district?
The variety of opportunities that we provide to the students is amazing. Every school and the faculty and staff within those buildings is wonderful, and they are committed and they care about our children. I like the size of this community, and that there's a very good chance that you are neighbors with somebody who works at the school, or you know somewhere you yourself may be employed by the school, or something about the feel of a community. So I'm looking at you, Scott, too, in your role. The feel of a community where you know one another. And that's a real gift for our students and for our families. I think one of the challenges then, the flip side of that, there's always a flip side, right? I think the flip side of that is that there are, in my experience, I have observed times when a school employee was perhaps too close to an individual or too close to a situation, and there can very easily be boundary issues where maybe a staff member is overly engaged in a person's family relationship, and maybe uses their position inappropriately. And that's not necessarily intentionally, but where do we draw the line between somebody we care about and we see at a religious service, or we see downtown at an event, and then step into the role of a faculty member or an administrator? Sometimes those lines get blurred to the detriment, I believe, of the families and the students.
Thank you, Kathy. Scott, what businesses would you like to attract to the downtown area, and how would you attract these businesses?
When you look at placemaking, certainly we've seen some growth in retail. We haven't seen a lot of growth in restaurant hospitality. So I think that's an opportunity for stronger placemaking. I think we really need to free up space to allow for that in our downtown area. I think it's also important, as you talk to DDA members, that they're able to establish and become known for something. I think we're seeing a lot more boutique opportunities in our storefronts. That's something that attracts people beyond St. John's. And I think that's important that we look at as a small community. How can we become a destination for other communities and economic development? Because people want to come to St. John's because we're known for something, whether it's boutique restaurants, whether it's upgraded restaurants, that people are interested in coming here and helping us financially support our downtown.
Thank you, Scott. Matthew, what is your perception of the current working and learning and climate in our school district? Do you have any ideas on how to ensure a positive working and learning climate in our district?
Yeah, so from what I've observed, from what I've heard, we have a positive working climate in our district. I guess on behalf of our staff and our teachers, on behalf of our students, I think we have a similar, a very positive environment. I know this year we're fully back in person with in-person instruction, and I think that's really important. I think it's extremely beneficial that we are back to that. I think it's important for our students to engage with each other and the teachers and others in person. So I think that only adds to it. I think the teachers are also, and our staff are very happy that we're kind of back in person as well. I think it makes their jobs a heck of a lot easier. They would rather be in person too. And I think, yeah, I think we have like I said, a good thing going with our district. And so I think on kind of both sides, we have a positive environment, both for our staff and for our students.
Thank you, Matthew. And Kathy, would you answer that, please?
One of the things that I would like to explore is, because I'm not fully apprised of it, is what the school district has put in place for psychological safety, physical safety of the students and the buildings. And from day to day, having an appreciation of the cares, worries, and the emotional states of the employees, but more importantly, the students as they're coming into our buildings. They wake, some of them get on buses 2 hours before school begins, and then they come in. Hopefully they have a full belly and they're warm and they're comfortable, but they come into our school, they're spending the better portion of the day with us. And while I believe everything's going well, that would be one area where I'd really like to educate myself and understand what we're doing and make sure that we can get ahead of any safety or threats that might eventually come to our community. Hopefully not, but might one day be present here.
Thank you, Kathy. Scott, when you previously said door to door, are you referring to city neighborhoods only, or would you visit the trailer parks, complexes, and rural areas as well?
Oh, certainly. The city as I've walked is quite expansive. And even though you don't think of areas of St. John's as rural, they're certainly out there butting up against farm fields and other places. We're all residents. We all have a voice. So certainly, regardless of where you live within the city, your voice is welcome.
Thank you, Scott. Matthew, do you see an important role of mental health in our school?
Yeah, I think mental health, as part of, as I mentioned earlier, part of creating an environment where our students feel like they can focus purely on their education, is making sure that they receive any supports that they need. Our district currently has received funding from the state, the past few budgets that increases or allows us, I think we've hired an additional elementary mental health counselor as well as a social worker that are both purely focused on providing mental health supports to our students. We do assess our students for anxiety and depression. It's our responsibility as a district to meet our students where they're at and meet them where they're at and provide them with the supports they need. We can't do that unless we know where they're at, whether it be their mental health, whether it be making sure they have a full stomach, whether it be making sure that, they're supported in all those different ways. So I think we are on a really great path regarding mental health. Every student who takes an assessment and who is, has the appropriate parent consent, who seeks mental health supports, they are provided that. I think as of now, you can get up to like 15 times, 15 sessions with the counselor for free at no cost. So no student who needs supports is going without it. Any student that does need those supports currently is being provided through our district. And I think that's great and just speaks to that.
Thank you, Matthew. Kathy, tell us about the current status of your campaign and future plans and strategies.
Future, wow, that presumes that I have that all figured out, and like some of you, I'm just trying to get through it. The current status of my campaign, you see we're what, 4 weeks out from an election, and I am using opportunities like this to meet folks that are engaged in the school and want to know what we're doing and what's in charge. So I'm kind of meeting folks. I'm asking for meetings with people that I believe can give insight that I cannot have already. My having a recent graduate from the school only means I know about what happens at the high school, and that's even very one-sided. It's been a long time since I've had somebody in elementary school. So I'm talking with others that have more recent experiences. And you said future strategies and plans. Is that it, Tim? For what? For this campaign?
Your involvement with school board, the school's district activities.
If I have the opportunity to serve on the school board, one of the things that I would like to do, and it's one of those aspirational goals that probably will never be met, but if it's a guiding light to the decisions I make, then it will help. And that is when we greet our students at graduation, I would like for all of them to at least recognize me by face instead of just as one of those board members. So I would be looking for opportunities to occasionally volunteer and cover recess and go to different activities and be seen not just by the parents, but by the students, so they know they recognize the face of another caring adult who's stepping forward in service to try to make their educational experience better.
Thank you. Scott, how important is it to find more outlets and activities for teenagers in St. John's?
Critical. If you looked at my Facebook for commission, it's one of the questions I've asked, and there's been a great ongoing dialogue about that. For very young children, we're fortunate we have things like the spray park, but certainly addressing things for teenagers and youth is highly critical. We see a lot of them gather at the pavilion because there really isn't a lot to do. We've also lost a lot of businesses like a bowling alley, other things that are great gathering places. As I've talked to some people, I think there should be a strong partnership with the school here. And I think that's probably the opportunity that the city and the school have together, is to converse, to jointly build those opportunities beyond just extracurricular activities at the school.
Thank you, Scott. I'm going to go to Kathy on this. How are we making the students and parents aware of the counseling services or mental health resources? Is this information posted somewhere?
You know, and I am not in a position to answer that. That is something that, as a recent parent, I have not accessed those services. And so I am not familiar with the specific process and information that is brought up. But I assume, and I would expect that it's consent for multiple modalities. Not everybody opens their newsletter. I think we've started to limit over the last half dozen years or so, materials that go home in students' bags, because you open them up at the end of the day and out would fly 20 sheets of paper. 15 of those asking you for to sign or something. So I'm not exactly familiar with it. I would expect and would encourage that it's shared multiple ways. Beyond that, that would be something I would be asking about.
Thank you. Matthew, same question.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I think in a few weeks this month, it's either happened or it's going to happen. There is a screening for, it's called RCADS. RCADS is for anxiety and depression. That's for, I believe, grades 3 through 12. I think all students have, I think RCADS. It's an acronym. I can get the information, but yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. It's just a specific screener that we use. I believe it's 25 questions. All parents who have students who are or will or have been screened, we're provided that information as well as an opt-out. Like I said before, we want to make sure we're always getting current parental consent, yeah, parental consent when doing things like that. And so, and like I mentioned earlier, students who do show signs of concern, it will either be, I think, the teacher or an administration will reach out to the parent and just offer those services for them. Or it might be even the counselor themselves. So again, with parental consent, like I said, if a student does need that support, it's being provided. Like I said, it's up to 15 sessions for free, which is a really great resource. And so, like I mentioned earlier, any student who does need those mental health supports, they are getting on the map turned away, so that it is being provided to the students.
Thank you, Matthew. Scott, we are a very conservative community. Most follow the traditional values of the past. We are in another transitional period of history and values. How patient and accepting of us, the older generation, as we attempt to understand and struggle to understand the more liberal, progressive values.
For a question or a statement, I would let me try to say this in response. Is I look at myself. I listen and learn from others to understand people that are different from me. I think it's important to have that kind of communication, open dialogue. I haven't walked in a lot of shoes other than my own as a white male. So to have conversations with people that are different from me, from race or sexual orientation, to help understand their struggles that I may not fully appreciate is important. So having conversation and discourse like this to bring people together to ask those questions. I look at myself and in my growth. There's certainly areas where I will say with people in this room, I'll probably agree and disagree, and I think that's okay. That's okay for all of us. It's really what we need. So many of us live in a world that feels of social media, and a lot of times that doesn't bring that diversity and difference right in front of us on a daily basis. So helping us all find ways to listen, to grow, to understand, to inform ourselves is important. It doesn't mean we're all going to agree in the end. We shouldn't agree. That's the great process of democracy, is that we still have those differences. But I think what's more important is that we can walk away from those with understanding of one another.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, I'm winding down. on these, on questions. So, Matthew, I'm gonna ask you a question. Ask Kathy, tell us about your current status of your campaign and future plans and strategies.
Yeah, so mainly it's an online campaign. Yard signs are very expensive. I have looked at them and it's just expensive. So I've kind of not gone in that direction. I do have a Facebook page. I had some pamphlets out on the table over there. I think I see some of you might have them that has a QR code that you can scan with your phone that takes you to the Facebook page, where also the website is on there as well. It lays out how you can write me in, because it's very specific since we have so many individuals running for school board. There's a really nice kind of picture, and I think it's on the handouts as well. And it takes you to kind of my philosophy, the issues, more about me. And so really just doing the online and pamphlets, I might go door to door. We're gonna see if time permits, but like I said, it's largely online. My family and friends have been amazing at sharing things on Facebook, honestly, and by word of mouth also. That's probably the best way you can let someone know about me as a writing candidate, is by telling your family and friends face to face. So those are what they're going on.
Cool, thank you. Scott, should we move to a precinct representation? No, wait. Okay, representation from an at-large representation to enhance our representation?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and for people that may not quite understand, precinct means that your city council would come from a specific area, and in that way you would cover the entire city. You know, I think our biggest challenge right now is getting active involvement. You know, I'm proud to say we actually have a competitive city council race this time. That's a good thing. That's healthy. We haven't always had that in the community. So I think as we see larger interest and involvement, that may be something that city council and the city as a whole that would require a city charter amendment may want to consider. But it takes active involvement from a lot more participants, I feel. Just knowing that right now, at points, the city has had those challenges of getting active involvement. So you know, I encourage everyone, you know, some of us have thrown our hat in the ring and taken that chance. But there's other opportunities to get involved, to learn, whether it's through committees and other ways within the process that are just as equally important in helping people make decisions.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Everyone, I have no more questions. Okay, I'm cashed out. So I appreciate your attendance out here tonight, and I hope it was informative.
I just need a clarification. You probably didn't hear at the beginning. Are the two of you running for different positions or the same one?
Very good. Should we?
Yeah.
Okay, so, yes, we are running for different positions on the school board. So I think a full term will be a 6-year term. We have 2 of those available and 3 candidates running for those. However, I'm running to complete the final 2 years of a term. Matthew is asking for write-in votes so that he can complete the 4 years on a term that he's already serving
Okay, yeah.
as a volunteer.
I was appointed to the board earlier this year in May, and I'm completing the rest of a 1-year term in order to serve past December. I have to run again to fill the rest of the 4-year term. So yeah, there's a lot of school board candidates. It is confusing.
I just want to know when I read the ballot, what to do it.
Right, yeah, no, I hear that,
We
yeah.
can
Thank you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes.
And then needed clarification. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Great.
Okay. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.